Okay, what I'm going to attempt to do is make a video showing how to install Windows 11 and get it working on a older HP Z600, and this should also work with Z800. The whole thing is that obviously Microsoft doesn't want or recommend that you install Windows 11 on this type of hardware, but there are ways to get around the limitations that Microsoft has to installing Windows 11 on this old system, but it's kind of a process. So what I'm going to do is I'm just essentially going to do video on each step in the process, starting out with the hardware you need. What I'm actually going to use is NVMe PCI NVMe card, which I haven't put together yet, but essentially this is the SSD slot and this is the NVMe. Without using this, you would actually have to have another type of card that actually is also installed in the PCI slot, which I don't know if I have readily available, but they're relatively cheap. It's just basically a single slot card that you can put just the NVMe card in, and then you can use some other whatever hard drive. Basically all it is some bootable device. But in this case, what I'm going to do is this is actually an SSD card. It's only 16 gigabytes, but it's pretty much more than what I need to have to boot Windows 11. But this is actually a necessity. You can't actually just use an NVMe card in your system and expect it to, the system to actually see the card and be able to boot off of it. So what has to happen is it has to first read off the SATA drive or SATA bus, and then what it does is then it can see the contents of the NVMe and be able to boot off of it and allow you to work and do whatever you want. I mean, essentially you can just boot Windows 11 off the NVMe, which is much faster than having a hard drive or SSD attached to the SATA bus, the default SATA bus on this system, because actually it's not even the newest technology as far as SATA goes, so it's only runs at about half the speed of the current SATA bus speed. So essentially what I'm going to do is I got this card which I'm going to put together, and this SATA card is going to plug into the SATA slot, and then I have, this is kind of a small example, but it is actually an NVMe card. It's Western Digital. I think it's 256 gigabyte NVMe. So it may be a little bit of older tech as far as NVMe goes, but it actually works. So what I'm going to do is that's actually what it's going to be set up like. The SATA drive, which is actually going to boot off of, and then this is actually the NVMe that which is going to work off of, and but I think as far as the bootable requirements for what I need to put on this SATA drive is only about, I think it's, I don't know if it's like 100 or 200 megabytes. It's not very much anyway. So I'll install the needed boot components on this drive, or on the SATA drive, and then and then I'll install the operating system on the NVMe. And then when everything is set up, you also have the SATA cable that will actually attach to the card in the SATA slot, which is right here. So that's actually what it'll be, you know, when everything's set up. Screw these down, put the black plate on it, put it into the slot after everything is done, and you should be able to just use this to fully boot Windows 11 without anything else, which then leaves, you know, space for hard drives and other things on the system in these slots. So you can actually put SSD or regular hard drives in there if you want. Like I say, they'll only work at slower bus speed, but they'll actually work. So and that's up to you if you want to do this, because obviously you can get the NVMe that you actually have on this card is I don't know if it's limited, but I doubt it. You know, so you could actually get a 2 gigabyte or, you know, whatever larger size NVMe, and it'll still work to host your complete operating system and other operating systems if you want. But anyway, that's kind of the start here. I'm going to first get the software installed that is needed on the SATA card, and then I'm going to continue the video, so I'll be back then. Okay, I got the SATA card is software installed on it, which is actually a version of Clover that usually used as a initial boot system for like Hackintosh systems. But the reason this is actually needed, the Clover is needed, is because the HPZ600s, you know, the old systems, they don't understand EFI or UEFI bootable, you know, file systems, or you know, newer GPT file systems. So that what this will actually do, you'll have to actually boot off of this in order to see what the contents of other devices, like I say, the NVMe and possibly flash drives, and or, you know, pretty much anything that or most things that have something that is EFI, GPT related file systems. You know, it'll have to have this to interpret those file systems, because the computer itself doesn't have the BIOS to support that. So the other thing is that it didn't have it available at the time, but this is actually the other type of card, and you can see I just have another NVMe card in there, and so this is actually what it looks like. And essentially you can buy these for relatively cheap online. The only thing this actually does is allows the NVMe to be seen by the computer, the HPZ600. So when you put it into the PCI slot, this allows it to be recognized by the computer. This allows it to actually, after it boots off of the SATA device, it allows the system to actually go back to the NVMe and recognize the contents of that and actually boot off of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically get this installed and secured. Oh, I forgot. What I actually used to get the SATA Clover installed was an image that I made of Clover, which is I guess is only 2 GB, but that's the file size, not necessarily what is required of Clover to be usable. So anyway, I use this and attached to my SATA controller on another computer, and then basically used Etcher to copy that image to the SATA drive that was on this, inserted in the slot. So I don't know, obviously many people are going to have something like this, but it's kind of, a requirement because I don't, it can't actually be done without, installing the software on the SATA drive, and you have to have some way to do it. And there might be USB devices out there you can actually use to copy the image to, but this is what I actually have available to use, so I just basically attach it to like I say, the SATA drive on my other computer and copy the image that I'm going to use to boot this HPZ600. So essentially I'm going to get everything secured on the card and put it in the slot, and then kind of show you what that looks like without having Windows installed. And then the last step will actually be installing Windows, which will require a minor registry change, which can actually be done during the install process, which will allow Windows 11 to be installed on the NVMe drive and boot on Windows or HPZ600. So anyway, I'll be back after I get the cards in the slot and make sure it works, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, I got the card, SATA card, secured in the slot. So all I'm going to do is plug in the SATA cable that I already have connected in my system. I'm going to put it into one of the available slots that actually is for this. Plug it. Okay, so we'll have started out with the SATA card is actually installed. I'm just going to do this short video to kind of show you after everything loads up. Clover should be on the screen. Make sure the cable is actually collected. So there it is, actually a initial boot. This is actually off the SATA drive. This is the pre-configured version of Clover that I'm actually going to use to allow me to install and boot Windows 11 off of the NVMe card that I'm going to put on the PCI card, and then we'll go from there. But essentially, I can't remember if I can use. I think I have to use a ISO burned onto a DVD in order to be able to boot install. But I have to get some things together before I can actually go through the install process. That would be including the registry settings that you need to have, a copy of Windows to install off of either USB or DVD. I'm not sure yet, and so because it's been a while since I actually did this, but actually have done it and it does work, so I'm going to go through the whole process, but I just need to remind myself how I did it, if it was actually off of a DVD or if it was actually off of a USB drive. But in any case, when I boot, I actually have to boot off of this in order to see it, on the screen here and boot from it so that I can install it. So basically this is the initial step, is having Clover working so that I can proceed to install the other operating systems. I guess, this could be used in theory to install like Windows 10 and so forth and so on, but obviously Windows 11 has some very specific requirements that, for systems that it should be installed on, and I'm going to just kind of bypass a few things in order to get it to work on this old HPZ600. So essentially I'm going to review my what I have done in the past to actually get Windows 11 installed on the system, and then be back. Okay, I need to take one more step before I actually start installing Windows, and that is to make sure that the file system on the NVMe is actually GPT rather than FAT. So what I'm going to do is I booted actually Linux Mint so I could use gparted, but I guess that there's many ways to do this. I just this is just the easiest way for me to do it. Is, like I say, I just booted it from a flash drive, and so that I can actually use gparted to change the file system type. So you can see that there's two theoretical digital or disks on here, and one is the NVMe, and that's actually 256 megabytes, and then you can see that there's the existing SATA hard drive, which is also on the card, and there's actually a bit of space actually taken up. Let's go ahead and select that. You can see basically the Clover exists on this little teeny part here, and so you actually have almost 15 gigabytes that's unallocated, which in theory could actually be used to install Linux Mint on, and be able to boot it alongside of that. Or another option is actually if you wanted to try something like Prime OS or Bliss OS, which are actually Android operating systems, they could actually be installed on this partition also. And like I say, if you just install them on this partition, they won't interfere with anything that is on this partition. But what I'm going to do is I need to basically, I'm going to make sure that the partition table is GPT, which is listed here. So I'm just going to actually, I selected GPT for the NVMe, and I'm going to choose apply. And so then basically the partition table is now, I make sure that it's not FAT, but it is GPT, so that I can actually go on with the process of installing Windows 11 on the GPT NVE hard disk. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart the computer, and then from there I'm going to I'll pretty much just have to load Windows 11 off of a copy of a DVD that I actually made with Windows 11 on it. You're responsible, obviously, to have a license code for it, but I do have the registry changes that need to be made on the flash drive, so I'll basically show you how to select them and install them once you are installing Windows. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, I just rebooted the system with from the flash drive so that it can actually see the DVD drive that's actually in there. And what I'm going to do is make sure that I boot off of the thing where it says boot UFI optical CD-ROM drive, or from CD-ROM. So that's already selected by default. I'm going to hit the keys on the keyboard a few times and make sure that it boots into the installer. And from there I'm just going to wait a little bit of time. So I'll come back when basically I get into Windows, and then we can go from there, because obviously when I'm trying to install Windows 11 off of a CD-ROM on a HPZ600, just the reading of the CD-ROM is kind of slow, so it'll take a little bit of time to actually boot up from the CD-ROM drive, and then I'll be back. Okay, I got to the initial screen for installing Windows, and so I'll just because I'm installing it as English US version, so I'll just leave the defaults, choose next, and we'll choose install now. And the next screen should be the license. That if you have your key code for Windows 11, you can enter it there. I'm just going to click on I do not have product key. And with this version of Windows, I have almost every option for Windows that's available. So I'm just going to choose Windows 11 Pro and choose next. Okay, then from here, obviously, here you can see I don't know if you can see it clearly or not, but it says this PC does not meet the minimum requirements, system requirements to install this version of Windows. For more information, look at the following web page. So I'm going to hit, I think it's Shift F10, and then I'm going to, that actually brings up a command prompt, and I'm going to type in regedit, and from there, it has the registry editor is up. And what I'm going to actually try to do is I'm going to try to import something that I already have on the flash drive. In this case, is basically the name of the registry file is bypass, because it has a few registry entries that need to be set up in the registry in order for the install to go. So I'm just going to click on that, and it says basically these keys can be contained in have been successfully added to the registry. So then after that, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to choose next, and it might fail, I can't remember, or I may have to just quit. And then I'm going to just start installing again, because I didn't enter the registry keys before I tried to do, start the install, just so you can see the error message. So this time I'm going to choose Windows 11 Pro again. At this point, it should come up with a normal install. You have to choose accept. And then I'm going to choose next. I'm going to choose custom. And from here you can see we're going to have this is the Clover, which is actually the boot drive, and this is the rest of the unpartitioned space on that same drive, which is the SATA drive. So what we can see here is we actually have, this is the data unallocated space on the NVMe which we want to install on. So I just choose that, and I'm going to choose next. So essentially what's going to happen here is I'm not going to probably just, go through this whole video of it installing because um, most people have possibly installed Windows before, maybe not Windows 11, but essentially this is just going through the whole install process. So I'll come back when we need to enter some user specific information as far as to finish up with the install and finally boot off of Windows 11 on the Z600. So essentially, it's installing now. It's only at like 2%, and it'll take a while to get done. So I'm just going to wait until everything's finished up and it reboots. Whatever number of times it has to reboot, I can't remember, but I'm just going to come back, like I say, when you're at the setup screen for Windows. To finalize the setup, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Essentially, it's went a little bit further and rebooted the system. I'm not sure if it's completely done yet, but you can see the menu after Windows is installed. You have the old CD-ROM item because I didn't move the CD-ROM or DVD yet, and the new Windows install. So what I'm going to do is just basically select to continue installing Windows. Like I say, I don't think this is really completely done, so I just figured I would show you what it looked like, and I'll be back. Okay, as going through this, I had to let it, I think it rebooted twice or 3 times, but pretty much just normal Windows reboot. So I'm at the final installation setup screen, so I'm basically just going to choose United States because that's where I live. And then I don't have it plugged in the internet because I don't need to. I'm going to, I chose the United States for the, and then I'm going to skip adding any other layout because I don't have one. At this time, I'm just not going to select. I'm going to choose I don't have internet, which is an option on this version of Windows 11. And then I'm going to choose continue with limited setup, which is an option on this version of Windows 11. And then enter a name. I'm just going to go with default user, and then next, and then the password, and then the password again. And it asks these security questions, and just to make it easy on myself, the actual answer for everything is just going to be a 1. So essentially just chose 3 questions and then just entered 1 for everything. And then I don't want any of this stuff on. So I'm just going to go down the list and unselect or turn off everything. Choose accept. And then it should be in the final steps or phase of finishing Windows 11 setup. In this specific system, I have a NVIDIA GT, I believe it's a 740 that's in there. It could be a 640, I'm not sure. I didn't look at it, but essentially that's the add-on video card I have in there is one of those 2. And so I don't know if it's going to install the most optimized drivers, and you may have to do something with that depending on what video card you want. And if you have want to use an old system like this for gaming or video editing, or a lot of other things. You could actually just put a more up-to-date video card in there, and it would help obviously the video performance quite a bit. And there's actually been other people that have actually made videos recommending these as a low-end budget gaming system. They just didn't have anything, as far as how to install Windows 11 as the, on NVMe. They just, suggested you installed the Windows 11 on, or Windows 10 or whatever version you're installing onto an SATA drive, and then having an NVMe as a storage drive for, say, your game files and so forth and so on. But this method obviously allows you to have, your full system run off of the NVMe. So essentially the installation is complete. Obviously, if you installed Windows 11 before, you know what it looks like, but it shows, this is actually the flash drive with Ventoy on it, which is actually, it allows you to boot ISOs, DVD drive. This PC would have local disk, which is actually the NVMe drive. And where in the heck, I don't know what I'm not seeing the SATA drive, but it's not really important. But like I say, you could possibly try to install another operating system on what the existing or leftover space on that drive, and they may try to do that. But essentially, the install of Windows 11 has been, completed on this HPZ600. I don't see any reason for any real huge problem, except on mine, I've installed Windows 10, Windows 11, so forth and so on. So the initial boot menu does show several options. So I'm going to see, I'm actually, while we're, I'm still recording this, I'm just going to go ahead and restart it and see if I can give you an idea of how reasonably quick it runs. And the initial boot of HP, initializing all the devices and so forth and so on, does probably take longer than loading the operating system or Windows 11 off of the NVMe. So it's essentially just rebooted. See the initial boot screen. I still didn't take out the DVD drive, so they're going to show up on there. So get the menu. I'm going to have to choose boot Microsoft EFI boot from Clover, and so then I'm just going to let it sit. Can I give you an idea? It gives me this screen. Like I say, I'd have to go with a UEFI editor to basically remove all those extra boot choices because I don't need them. But it's actually booted Windows 11 without all that stuff. I'm a default user. Enter my password. There it is. Windows 11 booted on HPZ600. Like I say, there's still a capacity. I don't have the trays ready, in front of me, but you can put hard drives in there. You can actually use regular SATA hard drives in this tray, or you can use SAS hard drives in that tray. They just, like I say, that because it's an older system, it has the older controller, which isn't the most up to date. And so in order to get something up to date, that reads and writes much faster, you'd have to have an add-on card. Usually they're like a RAID card that you'd actually add on to the system, which would allow the system to actually read and write hard disks and like I say, SATA or SAS at the faster speeds, and to possibly set up RAID if you needed to have something where you could actually have a little bit of redundancy, or make two hard drives, the space of two hard drives into one contiguous larger space. So essentially, I guess that's it. You could actually, I don't know what more people would do with this, but it's there's a lot of potential of using these old systems with Windows on them to do processes that are, like say, gaming, video editing, so forth and so on, with like a dual Xeon system. So it may not be as fast as some systems out there are, obviously processors, but the thing is that you're not going to pay that much for it either. So I mean, I think you could probably find this, systems like this with possibly two processors and a reasonable amount of memory for under $200. And if you were actually looking to getting the card, I could offer that. I do have a couple of complete systems, which are these that I'm wanting to get rid of. So if you're actually wanting to just buy something that's already set up, I could offer that. Just let me know if you're interested. Other than that, I guess I just end this video, and thanks for watching.